The first drop of rain hit the earth like a warning. Over Ouagadougou, the skies had turned gunmetal gray, thick with storm clouds that mirrored the mood within the presidential compound. A power outage had cut the external surveillance feeds for 5 minutes, not long, but just enough for secrets to slip in or out. 5 minutes was all it ever took to change the course of a nation. Inside the compound, Ibrahim Traoré stood in the command center, unmoving, arms folded behind his back. The flickering backup lights gave his face a sculpted, half-shadowed sharpness. He was listening, not to the beeping consoles or the whispering aides. No, he was listening to what wasn't being said. "Where is Captain Soar?" he asked, finally. His voice was calm, low, but in it was the cold edge of someone who had been betrayed before. Enough times to recognize the scent of it even in silence. Colonel Diarra, his most trusted intelligence chief, stepped forward but did not meet Ibrahim's eyes. He was supposed to return from the northern border inspection last night. No word yet. Communications are still down. Down. Ibrahim repeated the word softly, as if testing its weight. The north, the east, even the encrypted line to the French embassy, all down in the last 24 hours. That's not a blackout. That's a noose. No one answered. The silence was answer enough. Ibrahim turned slowly and faced the wall-sized map behind him. Dots of red flared across the border towns, alerts, skirmishes, irregular movements. He reached out and traced a line from Dori to Djibo with his finger. It matched too closely to an old French military corridor. One he had ordered closed 6 months ago. "Bring me the file labeled Operation Eclipse." His voice didn't rise, but his back straightened like a soldier drawing into battle. "Now." Colonel Diarra froze. His lips moved slightly, as if to object, but then, wisely, he nodded and left the room. That file wasn't supposed to exist anymore. It had been classified, then buried after Ibrahim took power and pushed foreign interests out of Burkina Faso. Yet something about the recent troop movements whispered of old deals reawakening. Ibrahim knew the scent of betrayal. It was bitter. It came wrapped in silence. And it always came wearing a friend's uniform. Minutes later, the file landed on his desk like a coffin being lowered into soil. He flipped it open, eyes scanning fast. Coordinates, dates, signatures. Familiar names jumped out at him: Lieutenant Hamidou, now heading the security of the southern region. Major Faustin, currently in charge of food distribution. Even Minister Gira, whose public loyalty was so loud it had always made Ibrahim suspicious. And then, a name that made his fingers freeze. Captain Soar. Next to it, an old code, Alpha Return, 2025. The file didn't explain it, but Ibrahim didn't need it to. "Get me General Diallo. Privately. No channels. Use the landline in the war bunker," Ibrahim ordered. His eyes were locked on the page, but his mind was already 2 steps ahead, hunting, tracing, remembering. He didn't flinch when a junior aide, barely out of military school, rushed into the room out of breath. "Sir," he panted. A vehicle just entered through the west gate with Captain Soar's clearance. The room froze. Ibrahim snapped his gaze up. "Alone?" The aide hesitated. "Yes. But, there's blood on the doors. A lot of it." Ibrahim moved down the concrete steps into the underground bay, where the vehicle was being searched. The car's windshield was cracked, one tire half deflated. Inside sat a single man slumped in the back seat, his face bloody, his eyes swollen shut. But it was him. Captain Soar. Ibrahim walked to the door himself and pulled it open. The man inside stirred, coughed, and weakly smiled through a split lip. "President," he whispered, "I brought you their plan." He passed a torn envelope to Ibrahim's hand. On it, scrawled in faded ink, was the seal of an elite foreign operations unit. One that hadn't officially existed since France declared it had left the region. Ibrahim's jaw clenched. Then Soar's hand gripped his wrist. But, someone inside gave them the map. Someone close. And they said, he choked, blood spilling down his chin. They said they already own your next cabinet. Before anyone else could speak, Sor collapsed. Ibrahim stood still. The thunder above cracked, loud and raw. Then he turned and looked straight at Colonel Daira, who had followed in silence. "Do you know what this means?" he asked softly. Daira nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. It means the betrayal isn't coming. It's already here." Ibrahim's voice was quiet, calm, measured. But it was steel. "Good," he said. "Then let them come. But before they reach for my throat, they'll realize they handed me the knife." The corridors beneath the presidential palace weren't built for comfort. They were built for war. Cold stone. Narrow passages. No windows, only metal doors that hissed open when security codes were entered. Ibrahim sat alone in a secure briefing chamber deep underground. A single bulb swung above his head. Before him was a table, bare except for 3 items: Captain Sor's torn envelope, a map of Burkina Faso with red-marked infiltration points, and a sealed report labeled, "Confidential, Traitor Cell, Internal." The door hissed open. General Diallo entered with the gait of a man who had seen too much and trusted too little. He saluted without words, his expression grim. "The list was right, wasn't it?" he asked, eyes flicking to the file. "Worse than right," Ibrahim replied. "It was updated recently. Some of the names I trusted just last week are on it now. New handwriting. Different ink. That means it's still growing." Diallo sat without being told. "It's always the ones who smile the widest," he muttered. "So what's our move? Quiet purge? Public arrests?" "No," Ibrahim leaned forward, tapping the map. "If we move now, they'll scatter. Some will run to safety behind foreign borders. Others will vanish into the army. We won't get them all." Diallo folded his arms. "Then what?" "We bait the trap." A heavy silence. Then Diallo asked, "And who plays the bait?" Ibrahim looked up. "I do." Diallo slammed his palm against the table. "No, Ibrahim. You're the head of state. If something happens to you. It already did." His voice cut like wire. "They betrayed me. They think I don't know. They think I'm too proud, too emotional to respond carefully. That I'll lash out and expose myself." Ibrahim stood, paced a slow circle, then stopped. "So I will. I'll give them what they want. A stage. An event. A perfect opportunity to strike, and I'll let them come close enough to think they've won." Diallo watched him carefully. "What kind of event?" "Tomorrow, I'm announcing a full cabinet reshuffle. Publicly. Live broadcast." Diallo's face turned pale. "You want to call them into one room?" "I want to call all my enemies into one room," Ibrahim corrected. "Let them wear suits and smiles. Let them sit beside each other, whispering lies, thinking they've surrounded me. Let them think they've already replaced me." Diallo exhaled. "And when they do?" Ibrahim picked up Sor's envelope, opened it, and slid out a small chip. "Then we play this." The general squinted. "What is it?" "A voice recording. Taken inside a base near Kaya. French accented voices. Coordinates. Names. Contracts signed by ghost companies. The final line says it all: replace him before Independence Day." Diallo stood, hands clenched. "That's in 3 days." Ibrahim nodded. "But what if they strike before your event?" Diallo asked. "They won't. They think I'm still blind." "That's the trap," Ibrahim said, eyes narrowed. "They think I never noticed the looks across the table. The changed routes in my convoys. The way the food tastes different in the last month." Diallo froze. "Wait. You think someone tried to poison you?" "No," Ibrahim's smile was faint. "I know someone did. They just forgot I grew up in a village where we learned to taste bitterness before we learned to speak. I swapped plates before the cameras rolled. Let them think I was careless. I needed to see how far they'd go. The room felt heavier. The weight of vengeance was taking shape, not in the form of bullets, but strategy. Outside, the storm had broken. Rain fell in sheets, drenching the capital. The streets shimmered with headlights, but inside the palace, darkness spread, not from the weather, but from the truth. Later that night, as Ibrahim prepared for the next day's announcement, his personal guard brought him a sealed note. From the East Gate. No fingerprints. No camera trace. Ibrahim opened it. One line was scrawled in jagged red ink. You don't know how deep this goes. Ibrahim stared at it, unmoving. The paper trembled slightly, not from fear, but from wind leaking through the cracked window nearby. He folded the note, placed it in his breast pocket, and looked in the mirror. I do now, he said to his reflection. And I remember everything. The next morning, the sun rose over Ouagadougou as if nothing were wrong. Birds chirped. Vendors opened their stalls. People returned to life's rhythm, unaware that in a few hours, their nation would be watching history unfold, live. Across the city, screens had been prepared to broadcast President Ibrahim Traoré's surprise cabinet reshuffle. The announcement had stirred rumors overnight, spreading like wildfire on encrypted messaging channels. Political analysts, former ministers, military brass, all speculated. None guessed the real reason. Inside the palace, Ibrahim was dressed in a dark blue Sahelian tunic with golden embroidery, simple, regal, calculated. No military uniform today. No display of force. Just the presence of a man who had decided to walk into the lion's den and feed it his own bait. General Diallo entered the waiting room before the broadcast. The guests are assembling. Every single name from the list, they're here. Even Gira. Ibrahim didn't look up. He was tightening the cuffs at his wrist. Good. Diallo hesitated, then stepped closer. The men we planted in the audience, they're in position. They'll be watching for any movement. But Ibrahim, once we reveal what we have, things will turn ugly. Fast. I'm counting on it, Ibrahim said quietly. Just make sure the cameras don't cut. Diallo nodded and left, jaw clenched like a man ready for a storm. Minutes later, Ibrahim walked onto the stage. The audience, seated ministers, generals, diplomats, and a few hand-picked press, stood as he entered. Applause rose. Smiles greeted him. But some were tight. Too rehearsed. Too eager. He knew who was clapping to be seen, and who clapped because they had already celebrated his fall in private. Ibrahim stood at the podium. Silence fell. He looked over them, calmly, as if weighing each face. He didn't smile. Brothers. Sisters. Compatriots. The words echoed through the hall, through every screen across Burkina Faso. In the coming days, we commemorate our independence. Our freedom. But freedom is not just given by flag or anthem. It is defended, by truth. He paused. Some ministers glanced at each other. A few leaned back in their chairs, visibly tense. For months, he continued, our land has been under siege, not from those who wear uniforms, but from those who wear suits. From within. You could hear a pin drop. I stand before you not just as a soldier, but as a son of this soil. And I say this to every Burkinabe watching, some among us have traded loyalty for currency. Power for promises whispered by foreign tongues. Gasps. A few heads turned. Some faces paled. Ibrahim tapped the podium. A screen behind him lit up. An audio recording began to play, a clear voice, unmistakably French, speaking in calm tones. He won't survive past the reshuffle. By the time the cabinet meets, we'll have his replacements seated. No need for blood if the food does its job. Another voice replied, laughing. Just keep his generals confused. The young ones can be bought. Especially that loud one, Faustin. He already took the offer. Faustin, seated in the second row, jolted upright. The room exploded. Murmurs. Outrage. Faces turned, narrowed. Hands moved subtly to phones, to lapels. Ibrahim raised his hand. The room stilled again. I was betrayed. But I never forget a voice, he said, locking eyes with Faustin. Then he turned to the rear door. Colonel Diarra. Bring in Captain Soar. Gasps rippled as the injured captain walked in, bruised but alive. Flanked by guards, he stood firm. I was left to die by the men in this room, Soar rasped into a live mic, but I remembered every face. Every signature. Every whisper. He handed Ibrahim a folder. This contains copies of wire transfers. Hidden meetings in Cotonou. Letters signed in Geneva. And the names of every traitor, including 2 men who sit here today. The hall erupted in chaos. Minister Gira stood suddenly. This is a farce. He's playing dictator. Fabricating lies. But the cameras had already cut to Gira's own signature on a classified foreign operations memo. Live. Broadcast to the nation. Gira froze. Ibrahim stepped from the podium. No one is being arrested today, he said coldly. That would be too easy. Gasps again. Confusion. Instead, he continued, you will leave here knowing that I know everything. And from now on, every shadow you hide in. I will light it. Every coin you've taken. I will turn it into your curse. He walked directly toward Faustin. The man didn't move. Ibrahim leaned close and whispered just loud enough for the cameras to pick it up. You didn't just betray a president. You betrayed a people who raised me from dust. And I promise you, dust remembers. Faustin's lips trembled. Ibrahim turned to the cameras. This reshuffle is not just political. It's personal. It's national. And it has already begun. The broadcast cut to black. Outside, the storm had passed, but thunder still rumbled in the hearts of those who now realized the trap had never been for Ibrahim. It had been by Ibrahim. The palace was no longer quiet. After the broadcast, it became a crucible of fire and whispers. Phones rang without pause. Embassies called for explanations. Old allies grew suddenly silent. And inside the intelligence wing, new orders were being typed, sealed, and sent to every regional commander within minutes. But Ibrahim? He sat still. In his private war room, he reviewed each name again. General Diallo entered, jaw set. They're scattering already, he reported. Gira tried to leave the city, stopped at the airport. Faustin disappeared the moment he left the palace. Rumors say he's heading east, to the Tapoa province. Possibly trying to cross into Niger. Ibrahim didn't look up. Let him run. Diallo frowned. Sir? We don't chase snakes. We set the fields on fire. The general gave a grim nod. Then you'll want to see this. He placed a device on the table and pressed play. A secret recording, just hours old, played in crackling audio. It was from a hidden mic planted on a former deputy who had attended the reshuffle ceremony. He knows too much. We underestimated him. We move now or never. Dial into backup plans. Delta 4. You're sure the French will still back us? They want him gone. They'll back anyone but him. Ibrahim exhaled slowly. Even now, they cling to the illusion that I'm fighting alone. Diallo straightened. You're not. No, Ibrahim said. But I need them to believe I am, for a little longer. He stood and moved to the window. The city stretched before him. A land of ordinary people, too used to watching kings play chess over their futures. He remembered the words his mother had once told him, barefoot in the dirt of Bondakwi, a leader who fears being alone will soon be surrounded by traitors who smile. He had never forgotten. Diallo, he said quietly. It's time. The general blinked. Time for what? For the final piece. Tell our southern garrison to leak the arrest warrant for Faustin, but not his real location. Use a decoy village. Let them think I'm sending troops blindly. And when he moves, we follow. Quietly. Let him lead us to the others. That night, while the capital tossed in waves of shock, a convoy of blacked-out vehicles moved silently through the forests of the east. No sirens. No flags. Inside one of them sat Ibrahim, dressed in field fatigue, not presidential garb. "Sir," whispered a young scout from the passenger seat, "we've spotted movement 3 kilometers ahead. No lights. Matching the vehicle profile we've been tracking." Ibrahim didn't speak. He merely nodded once. In the back seat, Captain Soar, still battered, face bruised, but resolute, leaned forward. "You didn't need to come in person." "Yes, I did," Ibrahim replied. "Because this isn't just war. This is memory. And memory must return to the place where it was first betrayed." He looked out the window, his voice like cold iron. "I want them to see my face before they vanish into history." Minutes later, in a clearing by a dry riverbed, Faustin stepped out of a stolen jeep, checking his watch. 2 men were waiting, pale, suited, speaking in quick French. One held a briefcase. The other had a satellite phone. "You were followed," one of them hissed. Faustin shook his head. "Impossible. I took the forest road. No trackers. You said the helicopter would be waiting." "It was," the Frenchman snapped. "But your president just killed the deal live on air. There's no landing anymore. Not for you." Suddenly, the woods behind them rustled. Soldiers emerged in silence, not shouting, not even aiming rifles yet. They didn't have to. In the center, Ibrahim stepped forward, eyes locked on Faustin. "I told you dust remembers," he said quietly. Faustin backed up. "I did what I had to," he stammered. "They threatened my family. They—" "You shook hands before they even lifted a gun," Ibrahim cut in. "You sold the future to buy yourself 5 minutes of comfort." One of the Frenchmen made a move toward the briefcase. Instantly, he was tackled by 2 commandos. "No need to open that," Ibrahim said coldly. "We already have your bank codes. And your voice. All of it's been archived." Faustin fell to his knees. Ibrahim didn't move. "You'll be tried," he said. "Publicly. The people you betrayed will judge you. And you will answer with the truth, not because I ask, but because the truth outlives even the strongest walls." He turned away as Faustin was hauled to his feet. Behind him, the forest was silent, save for the rustling of leaves. And Ibrahim whispered to the night, "You can bury loyalty under gold, but it always grows back." The trial was not held behind closed doors. It was not buried in committees or delayed by bureaucratic fog. 3 days after Faustin's arrest, on the morning of Independence Day, a wooden platform had been constructed in the public square of Ouagadougou, the same square where Ibrahim Traoré had once led a protest as a student, wearing worn boots and carrying a notebook with the words, "The people are not shadows." Now he stood on that platform again, this time as president, not to celebrate a victory, but to confront a wound. The nation watched. Not just in Burkina Faso, but across West Africa. The story had ignited interest far beyond the region. Leaks had reached global media. "The African president who turned a coup inside out," one foreign headline read. Another, "How Ibrahim Traoré exposed an empire's quiet war." But for Ibrahim, this wasn't about newspapers or cameras. It was about trust, and the price of betrayal. Faustin stood in chains before the gathered citizens, his suit crumpled, eyes bloodshot. His voice trembled as he answered the tribunal's questions, each one harsher than the last. "I took the offer because I thought the West would bring stability. You accepted 6 payments totaling 3.4 million euros. You signed off on false troop withdrawals. You fed internal intelligence to an ex-French handler codenamed Marteau. True? Yes. You forged presidential memos to bypass humanitarian aid from Mali and redirected it to foreign contractors. Why? Because I thought we were going to lose without them. I thought you were too young to survive it. Ibrahim listened from the side of the platform, unmoving. The final question came from a gray-haired woman in the audience, not a judge, not a politician, just a citizen who had lost a son in the northern province. You didn't betray the president, she said, voice raw. You betrayed us. What gave you the right? Faustin looked away. He had no answer. When the tribunal declared its judgment, life in confinement, forfeiture of assets, and a national truth address, the crowd didn't cheer. They simply nodded. It was justice, not revenge. And Ibrahim knew, that silence, that weight of collective remembering, it was more powerful than any parade. That night, under a sky thick with stars, Ibrahim walked alone through the palace garden. The jasmine bushes had just begun to bloom again. Their scent reminded him of home. Captain Soar approached, walking with a slight limp but no longer needing support. They're calling it the betrayal that woke a nation, he said. France has gone quiet. Their embassy pulled 3 envoys in the last 48 hours. Let them go, Ibrahim replied. They were never guests. Just ghosts who stayed too long. Soar paused. Do you ever wonder how close they came to winning? Ibrahim turned to him, his eyes reflecting the starlight. They didn't come close at all, he said. But the poison. I never ate it, Ibrahim interrupted softly. I knew something was coming. I just didn't know who would take the bite first. Soar tilted his head. And what if they had succeeded? If Faustin's plan worked? Ibrahim smiled, not the smile of pride, but of someone who had seen too many traps and walked out of them barefoot. Then I would have become the memory they couldn't erase, he said. Because a leader who dies with truth in his hand is stronger than a king who lives with lies in his mouth. From a nearby speaker, a radio crackled to life. A reporter's voice carried through the night air. In today's reshuffle, President Ibrahim Traoré confirmed sweeping reforms, including anti-corruption courts, an independent intelligence wing, and a new civic oath for incoming officials. He stated, quote, "We do not fear betrayal anymore. We expect it, and we are ready." Soar turned it off. And are we ready? Ibrahim didn't answer immediately. He looked up at the stars. They'll come again, he said. In silence, in smiles, in suits and offers. But this time, we'll see them before they enter. He walked back toward the palace steps, then stopped. Because I never forget, he said quietly. And neither does this land. He looked over the capital, lit not just by street lamps, but by memory. Burkina Faso did not forget. And neither would its enemies.